Welcome to Therapy in the Great Outdoors, a podcast about the business and practice of nature-based pediatric therapy of all kinds. If you are a nature-loving therapist who works with children, this podcast will help you start taking your work outdoors into nature and help you grow a profitable nature-based therapy practice or program that connects children to nature and changes their lives and yours forever. I'm your host, the ever honest, always 100% real, Laura Park Figueroa. I have been a pediatric occupational therapist for over 20 years. But 7 years ago, I almost left the field entirely. I was so burned out. And nature-based therapy is what saved me. It reignited my love of my work, and I saw profound changes in the children that I was working with. I'm the founder of Outdoor Kids OT and the creator of the TGO approach, an evidence-based framework for nature-based pediatric therapy services. I've helped dozens of pediatric therapists start and grow successful nature-based practices through my business coaching and online programs, the latest of which is the Therapy in the Great Outdoors community, TGO for short. TGO is an online membership site with loads of resources to support you every step of the way as you start and grow your nature-based therapy work. You can find out more at therapyinthegreatoutdoors.com. Working outdoors with children can be a wild ride. Are you ready for the adventure? Let's jump in. Hello, friend, and welcome back to Therapy in the Great Outdoors. If it is your first time tuning in, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. Today, we're going to kick off this episode with our 2-minute takeaway from the research, which is an article entitled "The Psychological and Social Benefits of a Nature Experience for Children, a Preliminary Investigation." This was a 2019 article in the Journal of Environmental Psychology. The purpose of the article was to examine the potential benefits of a 4-hour nature experience on children's mood, prosociality, and attitudes towards nature. So this was an experimental within subjects design. The researchers had 80 students from an urban Canadian elementary school attend field trips to a nature school with a forest exploration experience there, and a guided tour at an aviation space museum to have an indoor space to compare to. They assessed mood, nature connectedness, willingness to protect nature, and prosociality. So what did they mean by prosociality? This is a very interesting thing to me. They did 2 different measures of children's prosociality. That's a hard word to say. I'm going to say prosocial behaviors or choices. So they measured prosocial choices by a windfall task and a tangram task. So the windfall task is something that is often used in research to measure prosocial behavior, and generosity is another way to say it. Basically, the children were given a scenario saying, you just received a lot of money. How much money would you like to give to support a cause? I don't know the exact thing they gave to them in this article, but basically it's just asking them to donate money. It's a scenario, a role play. And then the second task that they had was a tangram task. So those are those puzzles that if you're an OT, you probably know what I'm talking about, those puzzles that you fit together to make different shapes. And this was really interesting because it was something that they asked the children to do related to their peers, where they had to assign their peers puzzles, these tangram puzzles to do. And the prosocial behavior was measured as assigning their peers simpler or easier puzzles to do. Giving a peer a really challenging puzzle to do kind of is a measure of not really thinking about your peers. So those were the tasks, the windfall task and the tangram task. Now, the findings were that the children experienced both more positive and negative emotions at the nature school. They had the same levels of fun and pleasant affect across both locations, And they also reported more nature connectedness and more willingness to protect the environment when they were at the nature school versus at the indoor aviation museum. And the most interesting thing to me was that the children made more pro-social choices after spending the day in the nature setting. So they assigned less challenging puzzles to their peers and gave their peers more money when they received that windfall of money in the pretend experiment in the windfall task. So the takeaways for us from this research as nature-based pediatric therapists are that this research gives some tentative support to the idea that nature does support children's connection with one another and their pro-social choices in building friendships, in making friends, in having empathy, in considering other children's perspectives. Now, the article did say that the findings were barely statistically significant, I'll say. Like they were in the statistically significant range, but not aggressively so. So some other takeaways that we may consider are that we need to consider children's fears in nature. So that was a really interesting finding that children experienced both more positive and negative emotions at the nature school. And they specifically said some children mentioned fear of bugs or fear of animals. And so we need to be aware as therapists that some children will have negative emotions in nature, and we need to support them in working through those. A few other things are that spending time in nature seems to support children's desire to protect nature. This is in other studies as well, and this study supports that idea. And finally, the nature experience was less structured, which may have contributed to the findings in some way. And so more research is needed to examine the role of nature versus the role of free play and children's choice in their experiences in affecting children's moods and pro-social behaviors. So that's it. That's it for our 2-minute takeaway. Today, we are going to discuss email marketing. I know it's a nature-based podcast, kind of strange. I will be talking about email marketing. However, I believe this is so important and was so critical to why my nature-based practice had the early success that we did in being able to grow quickly and grow a team quickly, be financially successful quickly. And so I want to share with you why this is so important for you. So if you currently have an email list and you're already doing email marketing, you may pick up some tips here too. I will share some things that are not just for newbies and beginners, but I am going to give a little bit of background about how to set up an email list, providers you might consider using, and why you absolutely must use email marketing in your nature-based practice. So the reason I decided to do this topic rather early on in the podcast is someone reached out to me, I think on email, and asked me, who do you use to send these emails to us? Or what service do you use to send these emails to us? And I was like, that should be a podcast episode. So I'm going to cover in this episode what an email list is, why you must have one, what email service providers you could consider using, and then some tips for email marketing. Okay, so to clarify what I mean by email marketing to start off, generally email marketing is when you are sending emails to people who are not your customers yet. Now, you might have customers on that list that you're sending to, but when we say marketing, the purpose of marketing is to attract people to your services and to get your services sold, right? So I'm talking about emails that you send to people before they are your customers, generally. So to hold people's emails, you cannot have a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet with emails and just send emails when you feel like it to potential customers. You need to use an email service provider. I do not recommend MailChimp. I have had a horrible experience with them. In general, there are many, many, many email service providers. If you type in email service provider into Google, you will get a million. MailChimp is a big one. Many people know MailChimp. I mention it because a lot of people know it, but I had a really bad experience with them. So I often tell people that I think for me, for a long time, as I used MailChimp, I was not emailing my list and setting things up in there because I was so frustrated with the platform and just did not like it. And my life changed with email. My whole relationship with email changed when I started using Flowdesk. So it's Flodesk. I will put an affiliate link in the show notes for this show because they are incredible. For 99% of nature-based private practices, I recommend using Flowdesk. That is my absolute favorite. There are many others that I won't name here, but I'm going to just say Flowdesk because that's my favorite one. Flowdesk offers, I think with my affiliate link, you get 50% off for life, I think is what it is, or that's what it used to be. Maybe I should have checked that before I record this podcast, but we are forging onward. Okay. But if you use the affiliate link, you do get a really great deal on it. And it is so easy to use and it is visually easy to use. It's simple. That's why I love it. For most therapists that are running practices, we are not, most of us, highly techie people who want to do all these automations and things on the back end in our businesses. Flowdesk is a very simple platform that lets you very easily have different lists of different people in there for different things that you want to do in your business. Like, for example, if you want to list for volunteers and you want to list for parents and you want to list for, I don't know, therapists who might want to apply for jobs at your practice in the future, something like that, you can easily split your list there. And it's just very visually pleasing to work inside, which you'll understand when you start to send a lot of emails through your email service provider, that it is nice to be able to enjoy the platform that you're using. So that's what I recommend. Now, I will say my online business, I have two businesses. I have an online business for therapy in the great outdoors, and I have my nature-based practice, Outdoor Kids OT. My online business has to use a more robust email platform than Flowdesk. So I use ActiveCampaign for those emails. I don't love ActiveCampaign. I have to say, it is just super complex and has so many tech things on the back end that you have to learn to be able to use it, or you have to have someone on your team that knows how to use it. I spend $1,500 or $2,000 a year, I want to say, on ActiveCampaign compared to $19 a month for Flowdesk. Now, I did get into Flowdesk really early on and have a great price on it. I think it might be more now. But so you don't need a super fancy email platform unless you are building a really complex online business like I have on the side of my practice, right? So I have to use ActiveCampaign because I need the automations that are in there to be able to tag people, to integrate with other platforms. Flowdesk is simple, and that's the beauty of it. It doesn't have bells and whistles. It does have automations. That's what you need for an email service provider. I'll get into that in a minute. But it is not as robust as ActiveCampaign. So those are the two that I use. As I said, let me just reiterate, I recommend 99.9 even percent of nature-based private practices will never need the robustness, if that's a word, of ActiveCampaign. It's a very steep learning curve. So for practices, I always just say Flowdesk all the way. And if you need something more robust in the future, you can transition over, which is what I did last fall when I was setting up all the automations for the Contigo Approach course. So that is what I use. Now, how does all this email marketing stuff work? When you get an email service provider, so you sign up for Flowdesk, Flowdesk will give you ways that you can organize your potential customers' contact information and allow people to join your email list. When you see all those websites that say join our email list, like when you have a website for your nature-based practice, you will be able to have links on your website for people to directly give you their email, and that email will be stored within Flowdesk. Again, you're not using a manual spreadsheet where you're putting people's emails in. This is all automated. I'm a big fan of automating as much as possible in your nature-based practice so that you can provide really great services and enjoy your work, so that your business runs smoothly behind the scenes, so that you are not manually entering emails into an Excel spreadsheet. Do you hear me loud and clear? Don't use an Excel spreadsheet for your email list. Okay. So basically what this will be is that someone can join your email list on your website, and you can have different lists for different people. You can build a volunteer list. You can have On your website, you could have, do you want to volunteer with us? Join this email list and we'll let you know when we need volunteers. Or do you want to be notified when we have room for students? Join this email list and we will let you know. For parents, do you want helpful information sent to you to help your child, support your child's development? Join this email list. So generally, you want to incentivize people in some way to join the email list, but that is directly shown on your website to people. You drive traffic to your website. And when people land on your website, you're capturing their information so that you can get in touch with them later. This is the main reason why you need an email service provider and you need to be keeping an email list in your nature-based practice, is because you want people to be able to get information from you when you have that information ready, rather than those people try to remember the name of some practice website they were on a long time ago with something about nature, and then they can't find you again. So when people are on your website, only a few people are ready to buy or sign up for services right at that moment. I mean, it's something like 1% or something. I don't know. You hear people in the entrepreneurship space say all these statistics, and it's like, where do those come from? Anyway, but basically, you want a way to get people's information so that you can get in contact with them later and build the relationship. So I want you to think about email marketing, whatever you're sending to people, is about building a relationship with them. So I want to speak specifically to sending emails to families or parents, since I'm talking to nature-based pediatric practitioners here. So the basic setup is that on your practice website, you will have a way for people to join your email list. And when they join your email list, you are going to give them helpful information that will build know, like, and trust value with your potential customers. I often like to say you also need to be establishing expertise as well. So in my mind, it's kind of know, like, trust, and expertise value with potential customers, because people can know, like, and trust you, but not think you're an expert in something. So when you send emails to families, and basically what a platform like Flowdesk will allow you to do is to automatically have the email added to the email list inside of that platform, inside of Flowdesk. And you can have automated email sequences set up to go out. So for example, in my practice, we have people join the email list, and then we have a sequence of 8 to 10 emails that goes out over the course of 4 to 6 months, I want to say. And those emails are delivering helpful information that hopefully supports families and builds relationship with them before they ever become your customer. So you can set all of this up once within Flowdesk or your chosen email service provider. And then you are automatically building that relationship with them, and you don't have to do it again. You set it up once in your practice and you can add emails as you think of them, but you are always then in the background, that sequence of emails is being sent to families to really support them again before they ever buy anything from your practice. So how are you going to know what to send to them? When people join your email list, you have this automated sequence of emails that goes out over time. And in those emails, you are going to answer the questions that you always get from parents. Okay. So one way that you can come up with what to write in those emails is to have a big old list of all the questions that you get. Just sit down and set a timer for 10 minutes and write down all the questions that you feel like you are asking or answering all the time from parents and caregivers that inquire about your services or in your previous work. If you're just starting your private practice, think about the ways that you, over the years, have answered a million questions, right? And so think about all of those questions and make a big brain dump list of all of those questions. Then you're going to break those questions into individual emails that you will send to families. You're going to write short, helpful emails to share some answers to those questions that you always get. Within Flowdesk, you would schedule them to auto-send at regular intervals when people join your email list. For example, if a parent enters their email on your website to join your email list, they'll get a welcome email immediately sent, and then maybe a week later, they get another helpful email sharing some helpful information about 3 ways to help your child pay attention. Or a week later, maybe they get a story that you share about an experience with your own child or with a child that you saw in your practice a while back that taught you a lesson about something like that. Always protecting personal information, of course. I know you all know this. So those are the types of emails, and you're scheduling those to send at regular intervals. So the way I have set it up in my practice is people get more frequent communication right when they join, and then they spread out over time. Now, you will hear from some people who do email marketing that you should email very frequently because then you stay top of mind. Now, with my practice, I don't feel like we need to do that. Many of the people that are recommending emailing so frequently are in businesses where where it makes sense to do that. For a nature-based practice, I don't think it makes sense to email every day, like some email marketers say you should do. Now, you send those at regular intervals, and this over time helps people get to know you, get to know your practice, and does keep your practice top of mind. So I often say when I talk about marketing that you don't know how much organic marketing goes on behind the scenes. There's no way to measure that, right? And what I mean by organic marketing is now that the world is opening up after COVID at the time of this recording, and we will be in person with people at parties again, you don't know when some person in your community that joined your email list and is getting your helpful emails is going to be at a barbecue or at a party with friends. And that conversation may turn toward a person's child who may have some challenges going on at school or something like that. And maybe the conversation is one in which it makes sense that the person who's on your email list would say, "Oh, I know of this really great practice locally. It sounds like your kid could really benefit from what they do. They do these outdoor therapy groups, whatever." So the purpose of sending those emails is to stay top of mind in your potential customers' minds so that in those situations where they come up with the people that they know in the community, they're going to refer you to people because they remember you, because you've built that know, like, and trust value with them and expertise. So the last thing I want to say on this is that so few practices actually do this. If you set up an email marketing service, if you keep an email list, and if you send helpful emails to people, you are not selling in those emails. Now, when you open your registration for your programs, of course, you're going to send that out to people. But the point is, you're going to send like 90% of the things that you send are going to be helpful information, and 10% might be, "We have this service you might be interested in. You can sign up here." So few practices do this. So few practices do email marketing that you will automatically stand out, even if you are in a crowded marketplace where there's a lot of different therapy services or a lot of different outdoor programs. You will stand out if you set this up where you're sending helpful information to people. Now, I said that would be the last thing. This is really the last thing. I think one thing that I often forget is that not everyone loves copywriting as much as I do. So copywriting is not copyright like protecting your work, but copywriting like WRITING. It is writing for a customer. And there are lots of copywriters out there who can help you. I will drop some names here. Jenny Gill, Krista Fromm, Courtney Smith are three that I know of that I would highly recommend. Jenny Gill is at Jenny Gill Copywriting on Instagram. Krista Fromm is Krista Fromm Agency on Instagram. And Courtney Smith is at The Office on Call on Instagram. Oh, I should mention Krista's last name is F as in Frank, RAHM. So you can find her on Instagram. Now, I will say if you want to learn copywriting, because it is a skill, it is absolutely a skill. And what I want to encourage you is that if you have to outsource the writing of these emails, a good copywriter is worth their weight in gold. But if you do like copywriting and you would like to learn how to write for a customer, because it is different than just writing a blog post or actually copywriting will help you with blog writing too. That's a whole nother topic for another podcast. But if you want to learn the skill of copywriting yourself, then I highly recommend looking at a book. There are many books, but looking at an initial book called This Book Will Teach You How to Write Better by Neville Medhora. The last name is Medhora. It's $5. You can get it on Kindle for $4 on Amazon. It is a very short, easily digestible book, and he is a copywriting teacher. I actually bought his program years ago to learn copywriting, and I just love his approach. He's funny. He's easy to learn from. I think he has a free copywriting course online too that you can do, like a mini course. So his resources are very valuable if you want to learn yourself. But I want to reassure you that if you don't like writing and you don't want to learn how to do copywriting, then you need to hire a copywriter to write these emails so that they're written well to families. Because again, you want it to be a good reflection of your business and the expertise and the value that your business offers. So, okay. That's it. Thanks for listening today. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have questions about email marketing or questions about anything I covered in this podcast, join us in the Therapy in the Great Outdoors community where we post this podcast episode every week and have conversation, and I will reply to your questions there. I'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, exploring therapy in the great outdoors. If you liked what you heard in this episode, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes so we can share the magic of nature-based therapy with a wider audience of therapists who work with children who desperately need connection to nature nowadays, just like we do. If you're ready to take the next step in this adventure, join our free Therapy in the Great Outdoors community at therapyinthegreatoutdoors.com. The TGO community is a private space just for nature-based pediatric practitioners. We have loads of resources there to support you as you start or grow a nature-based practice or program. Our free TGO community has a discussion forum, a jobs and volunteers board, a crowdsourced treatment activities section, as well as free video trainings, research article reviews, and book recommendations from yours truly. Head on over to therapyinthegreatoutdoors.com to join today. So until next time, get outside, connect, reflect, and enjoy the business and practice of therapy in the great outdoors.